This week it is service number 2, and for me personally, it marks the full cycle of all 5 services we have in our prayer book. And 5 weeks ago, exactly 5 weeks ago, we started to do fully online services. And I still remember that for me, one of the most moving moments in the first service, and probably still since going fully online, was to see some of people dressing up for our services. And of course, I cannot see you now, but while you are watching the service on the YouTube or Facebook, but I can after the service, during what is now becoming a tradition, Kiddush on Zoom. All of us are at home now, and I'm sure it must feel a bit unusual to work from one room to another wearing smart clothes. And yet, some of us choose to put on something special on Shabbat, as if we are in the beautiful sanctuary of the LJS. I have been doing the same. I have been dressing up. I have been putting on my jacket and the white shirt and the tie for morning services. And I reflected on it over the last couple of weeks. I think it could be out of nostalgic memories of our synagogues that we do it. Well, I personally grew up in a very informal and small Jewish community where sometimes the fact of putting a shirt instead of a t-shirt meant that there was a special occasion in the community that Shabbat. I remember my first time when I stepped into the beautiful sanctuary of the LJS. I was a second-year student then, and I followed the college's advice to visit as many different synagogues as possible. I was amazed and speechless by the beauty of the sanctuary, by the subtle and at the same time spectacular and unique atmosphere of the Jerusalem limestone. Multicolored seats directed at the magnificent bronze ark. From that very first moment, I realized that it is better to wear a suit in that place. So now, when I lead services at the LJS, even if they are online, I imagine myself as if I am in the building, and therefore I cannot wear anything informal. On the other hand, perhaps the reason for putting a smart cloth on Shabbat has nothing to do with the LJS building. Maybe it is about Shabbat. One of my favorite actors, Russian actors, I should say, Yevgeny Grishkovets, wrote a book where he reflects on people's perception of time. When you are at school, he says, your life is divided into periods from half term to half term. When you are at university, from exams to the other university exams. So your life becomes, and once you start working after the uni, there is nothing really which gives you the same life evaluation as university exams. So your life becomes, he writes, an endless stream of being. This way, it is easy to lose track of time. I noticed that during the lockdown, some people have a very different sense of time from the time before the lockdown. For some of us, time goes faster. For some, much slower. Some people do not remember which day of the week it is. Some of our normal time anchors are gone. Well, religion serves many functions. One of them is marking and dividing time into small periods, from birth to bar or bat mitzvah, from bat or bar mitzvah to Kabbalat Torah, from Pesach to Shavuot, from one Yom Kippur to another, from Shabbat to Shabbat. Almost nothing of it is real in a way. All religious rites, festivals, practices exist mostly in our imagination. Jewish festivals used to be connected to the agricultural year. But now, how many of us know when the time for barley harvest is nowadays? Our festivals happen mostly in our imagination. Stories we tell, food we eat, thoughts we think is organized by your belief system. It is so happened that the Jewish people live according to the calendar when one day is a special day, one day a week is a special day, different from others. In Hebrew, this difference is expressed in the word kadosh. It is often translated as holy or sacred. But these are two abstract terms, difficult to understand. There are many words which we know, which are coming from the same root as kadosh, kuf, dalet, and shin. The same root as kadosh, for example, is the word Kiddush, a set of blessings separating the normal meal from a special Shabbat or festival meal, dinner or lunch. Kiddushin, this is the name of a Jewish marriage ceremony, when one person chooses to separate another person and make them special for one another. When Torah uses the term mukdash, it refers to a part of the produce after the harvest, separated from the rest for the purpose of charity, or the part which should be brought to the temple later on. And of course, Kaddish, the text which is now mostly associated with memorial prayer, but which is also used to separate one part of the service to another. By reciting the Kaddish, we acknowledge that one part is over and hope that another will begin soon. Making Shabbat holy, kadosh, is our choice, not something which happens by itself. Each time our tradition speaks about holiness, there is a moment of active choice of making something special. It is like we dress one day a week in a special garments. It's like we dress one day a week in a special garments of rest and peace and call it holy, kadosh. When we choose to put on a formal cloth on Shabbat, white shirt or a nice dress, we mark the end of the week with celebration of our lives and our community. Before we move to the concluding parts of our service, Kaddish and Kiddush, we pause and make one day special because we choose to do so and call it holy, Kadosh. Shabbat Shalom.